It has been a bit of a tide change in terms of transfer windows, this transfer window, I think simply because of Michele Kang. And then obviously the big news from that sort of last week of transfers was another record-breaking signing. So we've now had, I think, 4 record-breaking signings in quick succession. Well, since Lily Germer.
I mean, there was 2 in the last week.
Lisbeth Avaye, wasn't she?
So Avaye, yeah.
And then Grace Gayoro, who has gone to London City Lionesses for an eye-watering 1.4 million.
Although London City Lionesses sources have now come out and said it wasn't that much, but I think the narrative, so it's kind of, there is still, I feel like we're getting to see more about transfer fees, moving slowly out of that era of women's football where everything was for an undisclosed fee.
Yeah.
But it does feel like whoever gets the story out first controls the narrative. So quite hard to know actually how much Grace Gayoro did go for, and if it is a world record fee or not. But either way, it's insane.
It's a huge amount of money. And it is interesting. I think there's also been a sort of split narrative that I've been seeing online between people who are saying how kind of outrageous and ridiculous it is that London City Lionesses are paying so much money for players. And then the other half of people who are saying well, why are you criticising a team that is just putting money into the women's game, and shouldn't we be encouraging other teams to be coming up to their level or kind of going in that direction rather than putting them down for it?
I think it's difficult. The investment in the women's game is never going to be a bad thing. The things that are concerning me about specifically the way London City Lionesses have gone about it, like the Chelsea splash into, it might not be a world record, but splash into Alyssa Thompson. That's frustrating as a fan of another team in the league. But they don't bring in loads of people. They tend to bring in 1 or 2 big name signings, and they do develop youth. It's not a thing that Chelsea are not they're prioritizing signings over youth. The London City Lionesses thing, it seems to just really be distorting the market. I think transfer fees in football are so kind of unpegged from reality anyway, but especially in the women's game, it's really hard to gauge what's what. I mean, there was it Corrales from Barcelona that they signed?
Yeah.
It's the 5th highest fee in the WSL. And that's just that doesn't seem to be pinned to anything. And is that partly because London City Lionesses don't have the heritage?
Well, I was going to say it is different because, they're a completely independent team.
Yeah.
They don't have the kind of infrastructure and setup that teams like Arsenal, Chelsea, even West Ham, Liverpool have in terms of being able to rely on academy players or that kind of thing. They haven't been a big team. They haven't been in the top flight before.
Yeah.
So I mean, I guess it's partly that. It's also partly that they do have this kind of insane billionaire owner who seems to have a singular idea about what she wants to spend her money on, and it is women's football.
Yeah.
I can't help but just feel, but maybe this is behind every single team, the wealth around that team. To me, there's something icky about it. The way it's being kind of splashed around. It feels very let's just solve it right now and let's just buy all these expensive players. I guess the defense of that is they are in the WSL suddenly and they do kind of have to respond to that. But I agree, there is something. Is the model just they just every season buy some really expensive players and try and gel a new team together? Yeah. Because that's just a weird model.
Rinse and repeat.
Yeah.
I also get the sense that I have all this talk about we're an independent club, which I don't think you can make that claim when you're part of a multi-club structure. I just don't think you can make that claim. It's not like the actual independent clubs that we've we know and have met and have talked to, but I never get the sense that there's actually much truth behind. I'm sure some of the players and some of the coaching staff do genuinely believe about raising up the levels across women's football and challenging the dominance at the top by a few teams. There is definitely a truth to that among some of them, but part of me kind of thinks Michele Kang isn't interested really in leveling the playing field. She wants to be the dominant one.
Oh yeah,
she wants to be the one at the top.
Yeah.
And I don't think she's the pantomime villain I think the league needed, but I don't think actually it's necessarily. I feel like I'm half expecting next season Jocelyn Prashur to be fired, and all of a sudden Jonathan Heraldez is there because she's just moving him around her various clubs. Yeah, it just all feels a bit.
She's invested a lot into the USA football program. Yeah. Women's football program. Yeah. I don't think she's done that here. So maybe it feels a bit different here. Yeah. It has been a bit of a tide change in terms of transfer windows, this transfer window, I think simply because of Michele Kang.
I think NWSL clubs are watching this all happen with a lot of fear. I mean, the protests that were apparently going on about Alyssa Thompson coming to the WSL.
Well, I did see Kristen Press and Tobin Heath talking about it on their podcast, and they were talking about how it's just going to happen more and more NWSL players coming here because of the salary cap they have over there. And it's like financially actually is a much better opportunity for a lot of these players to come here.
I do think that does a bit of a disservice to players though. Like, I don't think you can look at, like, if there was a flood and we were seeing like tens and tens and tens of players every transfer window, but like I do think there is still a level of defensiveness from, especially like players like Tobin Heath and Kristen Press, which is weird because they've both played in Europe.
Yeah.
But I think there is a bit of defensiveness about the league. Like, I don't understand why anybody would want to leave, and I think they were maybe before the US women's national team, they were like just before it's really transitioned to being a bit more international in outlook. Like, they've got a new manager in. I think Alyssa Thompson said she spoke to Emma Hayes quite a lot about the potential move to Chelsea.
Shocking.
I mean, yeah, I'm sure Emma really tried hard to talk her out of it. But it's like, I think there's a misunderstanding from some fans of the NWSL as to why these players want to move to Europe.
I think that's true, but I think American women's sports has a history of underpaying its players and doing these like it happened in the WNBA like 10 years ago when like Sue Bird and Taurasi went and played in Russia to make loads and loads of money because they were barely breaking even playing in the WNBA, even though they were like the star players of the league. So I think it is something that but the NWSL has had so many different versions because it has never worked out how to be financially stable. So yeah, I guess they're not in a position to be paying players a lot of money.
And they've done a really good job, I think, by having the floor of like the minimum salary, but
which we have introduced. WSL and WSL2 have introduced this season here.
Is it coming in this season, or is it
maybe it's just been announced and it's coming in next season? I would have to check, actually.
That has always been the thing, isn't it? That like players, even the biggest players in the England team, have said like, you know, we have a short window to make money, and so I'm going to take all the sponsorships I have. Like, we don't get paid that much. And there were so many players, specifically in WSL2, who were having to do part-time jobs on top of playing football full-time. And it just wasn't a sustainable model long term. And so I think they haven't released what the figures are going to be, but they're going to announce them publicly. They'll be staggered based on the leagues and ages, I think. But it's a really long term. It's a huge step between that and the Nike's response to the news that came out last season about players were spending like £4,000 or £5,000 a season who didn't have boot deals on boots. And Nike have now stepped in. I think Chelsea and Spurs last season were doing it unofficially through their partnership with Nike, providing all players with boots who didn't have their own deals. But now it's going to be across the league. Yeah. And I think it's things like that give me more hope for women's football than like huge record signings coming into London City Lionesses.
Yeah, because it just has to be sustainable from the top to the bottom, doesn't it?